Okay, this is our next problem. You might want to pause the video and write all this down that I have on the paper because I'm going to start working them out. This keeps the videos a little bit shorter. Okay, so I want to graph this. I want to find axis of symmetry, vertex, domain, and range. Okay, so step one, what did we do before? We used x equals negative b over 2a. All right, so in this problem, I don't really care about c. We'll put it there anyway. So a is 1, b is a 2, and c is a negative 1. Okay, so I'm going to plug this in. So x equals would be a negative b over 2 times a. So that's a 2, and a is a 1. That's my kitty cat. You hear him meowing. So it gives me a negative 2 over a 2, which equals a negative 1. So axis of symmetry is x equals a negative 1. Okay, now step 2, I'm going to find my vertex. So here's step 2. I'm going to use f of negative b over 2a. So I'm going to plug in the negative 1. Now I'm going to use my original equation, equals parentheses squared plus 2 parentheses, subtract 1. Again, if I'm going too fast, remember you can stop the video. Plug in my negative 1s. Now we do need to be careful here because here is a negative 1 which is squared. So negative times a negative is positive, so it gives me a positive 1. Subtract 2, subtract 1. So that's going to be 1, subtract 3. So I believe that will give me a negative 2. So that means f of negative 1 equals this. So it means I have a vertex at negative 1 comma negative 2. Remember, this is x, this is y. So we can go up here and put a vertex, negative 1 comma negative 2. Now remember, this is on YouTube, so on the lower right, it would be down this way. Be a little gear icon. You can use that to slow down or speed up the videos, whatever you need to do. If it's a review, probably speed it up. If you're confused, you can slow it down or just stop it. Okay, so now let's figure out what this is going to look like, because we're going to need an x and a y table to figure this out. So I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to start at my vertex, which was negative 1, and I had a negative 2. I want to kind of sketch this thing to figure out what it's going to look like. Okay, so my lowest point, okay, this is the happy parabola. So now my lowest point down here will be at a negative 1. And this will be negative 1, negative 2. So it'll look something like that. So, see, x is negative 1 over here, and negative 2, 1, 2, so vertex right there. Okay, so that means I have an axis of symmetry coming through this way. All right, what numbers you want to put in? You can put in 0 and 1, or you can put in negative 2, negative 3. It doesn't matter which ones you put in, but put 2 numbers in from the right or 2 numbers in from the left. I'm going to do the 2 on the left, so I know what negative 1 is. I'm going to do negative 2 and negative 3. All right, so now I need to find my y values. So I'm going to find out where it goes on this side. So I'm going to plug in f of negative 2 into my equation, which my original equation was up here. So I'll write it for you here. So it's parentheses squared plus 2 times parentheses. Oops, I ran out of room. I'm going to erase it and move it. Okay, so I finished my negative 1, and I took my graph and I moved it over here. All right, so I'm plugging in my negative 2's. We always use parentheses to avoid mistakes, because remember, you're taking the whole value of x and squaring it. So in this case, I have a negative times a negative. So what's a negative 2 times a negative 2? That would give me 2 times 2 is 4, so give me a positive 4. Subtract, because positive times a negative is a negative 4. Subtract 1. So that would give me 4. Subtract 5. So that would give me a negative 1. So I should have f of negative 2 equals a negative 1. So it means this is my x, this is my y. So back at my table, that was my x I put in. The y I get back is a negative 1. Now I'm going to put in f of negative 3. So f of negative 3 into my original equation. And yes, these do take a while. That's the way math is. Okay, negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. And let's see, 2 times 3, that gives me a 9. No, that gives me a 6, but a negative 6. A negative 1. 6, 7, so subtract 7. 7, 8, 9, so it gives me a positive 2. And f of negative 3 equals 2. So f of negative 3 gives me a 2. I can put that up here. So I'm going to change that light so we don't have all that glare. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Okay, now I have enough information for my table. I should figure out how this looks. Okay, my axis of symmetry is going through the middle here. And we've got that up here on our information. Our vertex is at negative 1, negative 2. And I see I can go out to the left at a negative 2 and I get a negative 1, so I have a dot about here. And then at negative 3, I have a dot 1, 2 about there. So the left side looks something like this. Remember, it's got to be a curve. And then it's going to curve back up like that. Okay, so your graph should look something like that. Okay? Okay, here's our second problem, so you might want to write all this down. This is our example problem. We're going to need to graph this also. We need to find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, the range and domain I like to have. Domain and range, it doesn't matter what order they're in. Okay, so step one. Step one, remember what that was? We need to find the axis of symmetry, and we're going to use x equals a negative b over 2a. Okay, so off of this problem here, we need to know what a and b equals, and let's go ahead and write c. All right, a is a negative 1. B, remember, that's the number in front of the variable to the first power. I don't see it, so it's 0. And c is a negative 2. All right, so when we do this here, pause and play that back if you need to, because b's not there. Because remember, this comes from ax squared plus bx plus c. There is no coefficient of the variable to the first power, so it's 0. So I have x equals negative b over 2a. So b is a 0. A goes here, which is negative 1. So what's that going to give me? The undefined, or is that 0? If 0 is on top, it's okay. So it gives me x equals 0. So axis of symmetry, x equals 0. What's the next thing we need to find? That's right, the vertex. What do we use for that? To find the vertex, we use f of negative b over 2a. We know what that is. For this problem, it's 0. So I'm going to use f of 0 and plug that into my original equation. Now 0 squared, of course, is 0. It doesn't matter, so it's not going to be negative 0. 0 is neutral, like the Swiss during World War II. So put a 0 here. So that means I have a vertex at 0, comma, negative 2. So let's fill it in. 0, comma, negative 2. All right, now before I find my range and domain, I need to do a little sketch. Okay, this is a negative, so that means it's going to look like this. So that's what I should see on my graph when I graph it. All right, I think I'm going to start it right about here. Okay, so I have a vertex that, see, axis of symmetry is at 0, and vertex at 0, negative 2. 1, 2, negative 2. So right there is my vertex and my axis of symmetry. And this is going to go down, so it's going to go look something like this. All right, something like that. So it means it's going to have one solution because it hits the x-axis at one point. Now I'm thinking we can probably use a 1 and a 0. So I'm going to plug those into my t-chart. So x and y. I'm going to start at my vertex. And let's see, x and y. I've got something wrong here. All right, I found my mistake. I had the vertex wrong. I wanted 0, negative 2. So x is 0, y is negative 2. So I fixed that. So fix that on your graph. Okay, so 0, negative 2, and we want to go, then let's do positive numbers. Let's do 1 and a 2. So that would give me like this. Now this now has no solution because it does not touch the x-axis. So if I asked you guys to solve this one, you'd find it has no solution. So I'm going to plug in f of 1 into negative parentheses squared, subtract 2. Notice where that negative went, because x goes in here, I'm plugging in a positive 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, but the negative sticks to it, negative 2. So it gives me f of 1 equals a negative 3. So put a negative 3 here. I'm going to do f of 2. So parentheses squared, subtract 2, and I need my negative in front because that was off my original equation. So all I'm doing is this. Any place I see an x, I put a parentheses around it. Okay, so 2 times 2 is 4, but the negative sticks back to it. Subtract a 2, 4, 5, 6, so negative 6. So plug this in here, negative 6. All right, I should have enough information to graph. Okay, let's see if we can do our little sketch here. So at 1, negative 3. So here's 1, negative 1, 2, 3. So about here. Axis of symmetry, that means I'll have another one over here. And remember, they're a mirror image. So if you did f of 1, we would get this. And when I do a x is 2, 1, 2, I get a negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So about here. And then about there. Now let's sketch. Remember, it's a curved line. So sketch it curvy. It's kind of hard to do because we don't want it to look like an absolute value. Arrows on the end. Okay. Then so our domain. Domain, I always have to remind myself, domain is the x's, ranges is the y. So domain x's, that's going to be all real numbers. And then the range, 0, 1, 2. So y, and that's a negative 2, and that's less than, right? Less than. So less than looks kind of like a sideways L, and equal to. So that should be our range and our domain. Okay, because this has negative numbers, I want to show you something here. If I plugged in f of negative 2, I should get that negative 6. So let's just try that real quick. Just watch. You don't have to do this. But if I wanted to plug in a negative 2, remember my equation looks like this. I should get back a negative 6. Let's plug in a negative 2 there. Okay, so negative 2 times negative 2, 2 times 2 is 4, so that still gives me back a 4. The negative sticks to it. Negative 2 brings down 4, 5, 6, so negative 6. So f of negative 2 is a negative 6. So you see, if I put a negative 2 in there, I would get the mirror image of a negative 6 again. Isn't that interesting? That's how they work. So it doesn't matter if you put 2 points into the left or 2 points in the right, you would still get a mirror image of your parabola. All right, this is our last example. So from ax squared plus bx plus c, what is a equal, what is b equal, and what does c equal? Sometimes it's best to figure those out. So a is a 2, b is an 8, c is not there, so it's a 0. Okay, so find axes of symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. So negative b would be an 8 and a 2 here. So that's going to give me negative 8. 2 times 2 is 4. And that's going to reduce to x is a negative 2. All right, so we can put that in. See, we understand this, so we can go a little bit faster. Next I'm going to do is find the vertex. Remember, that's f of negative b over 2a, so we know that's this. Again, so negative b over 2a for this problem is a negative 2. So I'm going to plug in f of negative 2 into my original problem. Pause the video if I'm going too fast. Okay, so put those negatives in there. And here we have a negative times a negative is positive, so 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to multiply that by that 2 out there. And a positive times negative is a negative. 2 times 8 is 16. So that's going to give me 8. Subtract 16. So that's going to give me then 8 subtract 16 is a negative 8. So f of negative 2 equals a negative 8. Okay, what did we just find? Since we used negative b over 2a, we found our vertex at negative 2, comma, negative 8. So vertex, negative 2, comma, negative 8. And remember, if you're one of my students, you can print out the worksheet, do all the work, and then just take a picture of it if you can do that. Otherwise, you've got to do it by hand. All right, I need to figure out what in the world this graph is going to look like. It's positive, so I know it'll look something like this. So that's what I should expect to see. All right, so I'm going to go over here and see if I can fit a graph in here. All right, my axis of symmetry is negative 2, 1, 2. And my vertex 2, negative 8. Oh, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So way down here, there's my vertex. Axis of symmetry is through here. So it should go up like this or like that. So it looks like I can use those two numbers, or I can use the two numbers on the left. So I'm going to do my t-chart. Now you might ask, is it better to do the two numbers on the right or the two numbers on the left? It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's your choice for which ones you want to use. Okay, so we had a vertex at negative 2 and negative 8. I'm using numbers to the right. You can use the numbers to the left if you want. So I'm going to use a negative 1 and a 0. I think those will probably be your easiest to work out. So I'm going to find out here what happens when I do f of negative 1 into my original equation, and that was 2 parentheses squared plus 8 parentheses. So plug in my negative 1's. So negative times negative is a positive, so it gives me 2 times 1 is just 2. Subtract 8. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 6. So negative 6. Remember, you find the difference between the two numbers, and whoever has the greatest absolute value wins. So we have negative 6. All right, so plug in here a negative 6. And now I'm going to find f of 0. So plug in zeros. Looks like I'm going to get 0, 0, right? F of 0 equals 0. So 0, 0. Okay, so remember this is symmetric. So I'm going to plot that point, negative 1, negative 6. So negative 1, negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So about there. Mirror image over about there. And I have one at 0, 0. So mirror image over about there. So how many solutions does this problem have? It's got 2. So I'm gonna kind of sketch in my graph there. Okay, so range is the y's. So that goes up and down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a negative 8, and it's going up. So y is greater than or equal to a negative 8. And the domain is all real numbers. Okay, so that should give you examples of all the different type of problems for this one. Sorry this video is about 45 minutes long, but sometimes that's how long it takes to explain things. Hopefully your homework won't take that long. So best of luck. Remember, you can download, take pictures, and send them to me. Hope you guys are all doing well, and I miss you very much.